The worship theme for June is Celebrate Blessings. I think my remarks about celebrating blessings for today might have been different before the events of the last few weeks. There is a sentiment that arises tragic event after tragic event. Inevitably, there will be a post on Facebook that says, "Hug the one you love. This kind of event demonstrates how fragile and uncertain life is." I certainly get it. We definitely should celebrate the blessings in our lives, in part because life is fragile and uncertain. It's absolutely true. But what is also true is even with all the blessings in our lives that we want to celebrate, we too often are bombarded with all the suffering. And as much as we would like to come here and just have a lovely, carefree service full of hope and celebrating the many blessings of our lives, it just seems so hard sometimes to turn away from suffering, especially when children have been massacred in their elementary school classroom by an 18-year-old with a weapon designed purely and brutally for mass destruction. I truly have come to believe that tragically we cannot remove the violent impulse from some humans. What does seem likely to be more preventable, however, in this country is the carnage that comes from high-capacity magazines attached to semi-automatic weapons designed for one purpose and one purpose only. I say this understanding that as we come to the end of another congregational year, I have to admit to you, my beloved congregation, I get it. Sometimes it feels like we are living two different lives. The daily life we live, going to school, our jobs, or the movies, or hikes, or all the various blessings that make our lives full and full of meaning, then often it feels like there's this other side of our lives right now, the side that I have felt myself and heard so many of you discuss, the side that has the sadness or the depression, the anger, frustration, the worry, the fear that so many of us are feeling, so often just barely beneath the surface, so often impacted by the tragic news of the day. On some days, no matter how privileged we are, no matter how many blessings we have in our lives, celebrating just doesn't seem like the right verb for the times. However, we do have so many blessings to celebrate. Blessings we should not take for granted. Among the many lessons of this pandemic that I want to remember is to not ever take for granted seeing you in person here on Sundays. I appreciate the blessing of Zoom, but honestly, for me, I'm pretty sick of sitting in front of a computer screen. And I'm certainly been thankful for Zoom Church and the technology associated, but I love our shared time together in our journeys, and I have missed you all so much. And I don't ever want to take for granted the connection and blessing of human connection. And I don't ever want to take for granted having music in person. And there are bigger blessings that we cannot take for granted, like, democracy. Even with all of its flaws, of which there are and have always been many, democracy and the ideals for which we always hope it stands for in the system, they cannot be taken for granted. As this quote from Winston Churchill reminds us, many forms of government have been tried and will be tried in this world of sin and woe. No one pretends that democracy is all perfect or all wise. Indeed, it has been said that democracy is the worst form of government except for all the other forms that have been tried from time to time. Our democracy needs attention. It needs protection. It needs reflection, it needs inspiration, and it needs change, not the wholesale thrashing some are undertaking. And it's no small coincidence I'm talking about democracy on the day of our annual meeting. This free faith, this tradition of Unitarian Universalism, I would say for the vast majority of the people in the room today, this faith is a blessing to be celebrated. For so many of us coming to this faith, whether starting your UU journey at UUCF or some other congregation, coming to this faith for some of us, including me, was life-saving. Whether lost or lonely, whether looking for joy or connection, whether needing a community of like-hearted people or a moral community to serve as a foundation for social action, whether it was to teach your children lessons that you hoped would call them to their best selves, whatever the reason you are here, the vast majority of us, this place is an absolute blessing to be celebrated. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have flaws. That doesn't mean it doesn't need renewal. That certainly doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be protected. And of course, that doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be changed. Yes, I know on some days it's hard to remember to hug your loved ones, just as it is hard to always remember how important this faith community may have been, is, or will be for you. Things are so uncertain. We get drawn into so many things, so many issues, so many thoughts fill our head, but some blessings and attention need to stay blessing. Some blessings need attention to stay blessings. Like I said, these things can't be taken for granted as we are bombarded again and again. We have to remember many of these blessings from time to time do need renewal. At other times need protection, at other times they need to change. Our communities, our congregations, this democratic republic are also fragile and uncertain at times. And frankly, in many ways, they have always been. Although all of these things seem to be going through a particularly hard patch right now. And as hard as things are, it seems hard to still have the energy sometimes, right? We're exhausted for protecting, renewing, or changing our communal lives. But I'm afraid if we want them to improve, or even function, we have very little choice but to believe that transformation is still possible. For instance, I will not stop believing that we can get those damn assault rifles and high-capacity magazines out of the streets, and I will not stop trying to do something about that. All of this begs the question, why? With all that's going on, with all that's troubling, with all the energy we need to get to from day to day, why care? Why try to do anything? Why? Well, I've been reflecting on this, and here's what I think. As beautiful as it is, we are not here just for the music. As much as we want our children to grow, to make good choices, we are not here just for the RE program. As meaningful as you may or may not find the sermons, you are not here for occasional words of inspiration. We are here because deep inside, even if it's not something we often talk about, with the deep emotion that we may feel, we are here because we want to be loved. And we want others to feel love. And we want our planet to be loved. We want more love and kindness in our communities and in our country, which most of the time I don't understand why it's so freaking hard. This desire for our world, this reason for so much of the activities we undertake is very much why we are here. And although we say the word sometimes and don't always think about it, the depth of feeling behind the thoughts of the words of our mission is about this. Maybe if we think about them as sacred, maybe if we were a congregation full of theists, we would believe that we were called to it by God. Maybe it's just some thoughts some folks came up with before we arrived, but the call to transform ourselves, our community, and the world through acts of love and justice is no small calling. It is not Pollyanna. It is not stupid or trite or foolish. It is why we have gathered in this community for over 60 years, whether this has always been the stated mission or not. And as we get ready for our annual meeting, I can't say this with more resolve. We are all here to serve this mission. All of us, staff, ministers, members, the board, the CT, everyone. We are here to do our best to work to transform whatever parts of ourselves, our community, and the world we can through various acts of love and justice. That means that the annual meeting is a chance for us to live that mission. The budget is our financial attempt, as imperfect as it is, to live that mission. The decisions we make here today, the votes we take, the very essence of the purpose of this meeting is for all of us to support each other in living that mission. That's the bottom line. That's the blessing that we will celebrate here today. Through all of the world's troubles, through all of the blessings and struggles of our own lives, how amazing is it that we have this campus, this building, and each other to do whatever we can to support more love in the world. For that may be one of the deepest blessings for us all to celebrate. Our meeting today is a celebration, and it should be, because no matter how challenging things are, UUCF has been and will remain a gathering place of love, a deeply meaningful place for reflection, and a vital source of transformation of acts of love and justice. And although a meeting is what we are called to today, our shared blessing to celebrate, let's not ever get so caught up in our institutional process that we forget the why. For it is why we are here. And it is to make love made real as much as we possibly can for ourselves, each other, and this world. May that be so, and amen.